Mandy, answer me. Why is there a retired judge and his wife living in the beachfront condo I bought for you? Her words froze the lively Thanksgiving table in an instant. Clink. A sharp, hollow sound rang out. Across from me, my father, Richard, had dropped his fork onto his plate. I stopped my hand halfway to my mouth, sweet potato casserole on the spoon, and slowly looked up. My grandmother Eleanor's gaze pierced straight past me, skewering my sister Brittany, who sat stiffly beside me, and then our parents. Having just been discharged from Shady Grove nursing home after 3 years, where my parents had placed her and rarely visited, my grandmother seemed far sharper than anyone remembered. Her eyes missed nothing. Grandma, what did you just say? My voice trembled. The words sounded unreal to someone like me, who was currently sleeping on a friend's couch and eating ramen for dinner. Didn't you hear me, Mandy? I'm talking about the Seabreeze Point condo. The one I bought for you 3 years ago. For your future. Her voice was calm, but underneath it, I could feel something like boiling magma. Grandma, isn't there some kind of mistake? I summoned my courage. My heart pounded wildly. I don't own any condo. I don't even own a car that runs. I was evicted 2 months ago. I've been crashing at Jasmine's place ever since. What? My grandmother's eyebrow twitched. As soon as I got out of that terrible nursing home, I went to check on the place as a surprise. You weren't there. Instead, a retired judge named Harold and his wife answered the door. They said they were renting from Brittany's husband, Derek. Eleanor turned slowly. Brittany, would you care to explain what's going on? Out of the corner of my eye, I saw my sister Brittany's hand trembling as she held her wine glass. Grandma, Brittany cried out, almost screaming, that must be some kind of mistake. Maybe you got the address wrong. There are dozens of condos at Seabreeze Point. That's right, Mom. My mother, Patricia, jumped in, sweat beading on her forehead. It's just memory issues. The nursing home mentioned you might be confused. Come on, the turkey's getting cold. Be quiet. My grandmother's shout slammed down like a physical blow. Despite her age and frailty, her voice was so powerful that everyone at the table flinched. My mind is perfectly clear. The address? 42 Seabreeze Point. The view? Direct oceanfront. It was exactly the condo I signed for. And more than that. My grandmother reached into her purse, pulled out a photograph, and slid it across the table. This is what Harold, the retired judge, said to me. We've been renting this place from our daughter-in-law's sister, Brittany. The moment those words landed, the color drained completely from Brittany's face. In the photo was a stunning beachfront condo with floor-to-ceiling windows. Standing on the balcony, smiling for the camera, were Brittany, her husband Derek, and Derek's parents, the retired judge and his wife. Shall we ask for an explanation of this photo? The air in the room grew thick and heavy. I stared at the photo, doubting my own eyes. It was the exact same place Brittany had posted on social media with the caption #weekendvibes, back when I was working 80-hour weeks just to afford gas. That was my condo? What is going on? I stood up. Mom, Dad, what does this mean? Grandma bought a condo for me? Then why am I living like a homeless person right now? At my question, my father looked away awkwardly. Mom, it's complicated. Today is Thanksgiving. Talking about money at dinner isn't appropriate. Tomorrow we can sit down and talk properly. My grandmother cut him off coldly. No, we're clearing everything up here and now. Mandy, you really don't know anything, do you? About the $600,000 beachfront condo I bought for you 3 years ago and how it was used. $600,000? The room spun. My bank account balance that morning was $11.40. Working 3 jobs, sacrificing sleep, only to watch everything disappear into debt. I had never seen anything close to that number. I don't know anything. I've never seen a condo, and no one ever told me anyone bought one for me. At my words, my grandmother's expression softened slightly, a flicker of pity, before she turned a hard stare to my parents. Richard, Patricia, you told me this, didn't you? Mandy is emotionally unstable and incapable of managing property. Until she matures, we will act as her guardians and manage the condo on her behalf. What? I couldn't believe my ears. When exactly was I ever emotionally unstable? I graduated with honors. I've worked nonstop. I've never caused you trouble, not once. Mandy, calm down, my mother said in a low, warning voice. See? This is exactly what I mean by unstable. You're getting worked up. Don't you dare. I sprang to my feet. My chair toppled over with a loud crash. I am perfectly normal. You're the ones who are sick. When I couldn't pay my rent, you told me I wasn't trying hard enough. And behind my back, you handed over my condo to Brittany. Mandy, how dare you speak to your parents like that? My father shouted, slamming his fist on the table. We did it for your own good. You don't have the ability to manage assets. For my own good? The absurdity left me numb. Oh, shut up already. Brittany screamed, her face twisted. A boring, plain loser like you doesn't deserve a beautiful condo on the beach. Derek's parents are distinguished. They needed a place to retire. We were just putting it to good use. You should be thanking us. Brittany, you. That's enough. My grandmother's voice cut cleanly through the shouting. She rose slowly, leaning on her cane, and walked over to me. Then she placed her hand gently on my shaking shoulder. Mandy is right. All of you are rotten, completely rotten to the core. Mom, that's going too far, Richard said, his face twisting. We did everything for the sake of this family. My grandmother looked down at him with cold disgust. There is no family here. There are only vultures who fed on their own daughter's inheritance. She pulled a smartphone from her pocket and pressed speed dial. Come in, please. Yes, right now. The front door opened, letting in a gust of cold night air along with a woman. It was Detective Miller, my grandmother's personal attorney. She carried a thick briefcase. Mrs. Hanson, I've brought all the documents as instructed, Detective Miller said in a businesslike tone, setting a heavy stack of papers on the table. What is all this? My father staggered back a step. Richard, Patricia, and Brittany, my grandmother declared, I will now go through every single fraudulent act you committed, one page at a time. Don't think for a moment you can escape. I wiped away my tears and lifted my head. The warmth of my grandmother's hand gave me strength. This wasn't the time to cry. Huh. In the dead silent room, my small laugh echoed. I stood up slowly, shedding the mask of the frightened victim I'd worn until now. Looking down at my family with cold, merciless eyes, I spoke. That's enough acting, Grandma. Yes, indeed, Mandy. I've been thoroughly entertained, my grandmother replied, stepping firmly to my side, her cane tapping the floor. My parents and Brittany were speechless at our sudden transformation. Mandy, why are you laughing? My mother asked in a trembling voice. Don't you see? I told her coldly. You've been played. I continued without mercy. 2 weeks ago, Grandma contacted me. Not through you, but through my old college roommate, who works at the nursing home. She said, Mandy, I think your family has been intercepting my letters and deliberately isolating you. From that moment on, we knew everything. And that's why we set the stage for tonight, this so-called Thanksgiving dinner. We waited for the moment you'd let your guard down and confess your crimes with your own mouths. What? We were set up. My father went pale and tried to stand. Sit down. One word from my grandmother pinned him to his chair. This isn't over. In fact, it's only just beginning. Detective Miller, please. Shall we start with the forged transfer agreement? The handwriting analysis is complete. Detective Miller slid a document to the center of the table, a property registry. This property, Unit 42 at Seabreeze Point, was originally purchased by Mrs. Eleanor Hanson in Mandy Hanson's name. However, the current registered owner is Brittany Thompson. The transfer date is November 15th, 3 years ago. The sale price? $1. Essentially a gift. $1. That was the price of my future. I stared at the date. 3 years ago, exactly when I had graduated from college and begun drowning under student loans. The exact moment my life started to derail. I always thought something was wrong, I said quietly. I graduated at the top of my class. I had professors' recommendations. I made it to final interviews at 6 different firms. And yet, somehow, every single one rejected me without explanation. I fixed my gaze on my father. His eyes darted away. Around that time, anonymous emails were sent to the HR departments of every company I was applying to. Emails claiming that Mandy Hansen has a history of emotional outbursts and cannot be trusted in a professional environment. What are you talking about? He tried to play dumb. IP addresses don't lie, Dad. The emails were sent from this house's Wi-Fi network. The timestamps match the hours you were in your study. You pushed me into unemployment on purpose, because if I became independent, you couldn't keep committing fraud in my name. No, it was for your own good. And you, Mom? I turned to my mother. I finally understand why no matter how hard I worked, I never saved any money and why I kept failing credit card applications. Detective Miller produced a set of bank statements. This is the account Mandy used to repay her student loans. She deposited money every month from her part-time jobs. However, the funds were automatically redirected, not to the loan agency, but to a hidden account opened in Patricia Hansen's name. My mother gasped. And yet, Mom, you kept telling me I wasn't trying hard enough. That I should be more like Brittany. Because of you, I was blacklisted as a delinquent borrower. I couldn't even rent an apartment. You destroyed my credit. You forced me to work 3 jobs and still live in fear of homelessness. My mother covered her mouth with trembling hands. My poverty wasn't bad luck. It wasn't a lack of effort. It was a cage carefully, deliberately built by my own parents. And you, Brittany? I turned to my sister. She glared back as if she were the victim. Derek's parents are living in the condo, aren't they? So what if they are? Brittany jutted out her chin. Derek's dad is a retired judge. He needed a place near the coast. What's wrong with helping family? It's better than leaving the place empty. You let them stay? I raised an eyebrow. For free. Of course, they're family. Don't lie. I nodded to Detective Miller. Without a word, she presented the next document. These are the deposit records for a bank account under Brittany's name, Detective Miller read calmly. On the 1st of every month, $4,200 is transferred from an account belonging to Harold Westbrook, the retired judge. The stated purpose of the transfer: rent. My grandmother spoke first. Brittany, so you not only stole Mandy's condo, but then used it to squeeze rent out of your own in-laws? No, that's not it. Brittany screamed. That was a maintenance fee. It's a luxury condo. It costs money to keep it up. And Derek's parents are rich anyway. $4,200 a month is nothing to them. That's not the point, I said quietly but with force. You took my property without permission and made $4,200 a month off it. Meanwhile, I, the rightful owner, could barely afford bus fare. You knew that. Brittany's eyes darted away. Mom, listen, my father leaned forward, trying to intervene. Okay, maybe the way we did it was a little heavy-handed. But look at the outcome. The condo is well maintained, Derek's parents are happy, and the family as a whole benefits. Isn't that better than letting Mandy live there alone? We can always give Mandy some money later. A severance payment. A consolation payment. My grandmother repeated in a low voice. The stem of the wine glass in her hand creaked ominously. When my granddaughter was on the brink of sleeping on the streets, you were living in luxury off her property, and now you think you can settle this with consolation money? But Mom, Mandy is still young. Hardship builds character, doesn't it? Shut up. My grandmother's roar echoed through the room. I wrote to Mandy every single month. I asked, how's the condo? Are you happy there? But I never received a single reply. Instead, Richard kept telling me Mandy is too unstable to even write a thank you note. I shook my head. Not a single letter ever reached me. Of course not, my grandmother said coldly, turning to my parents. Every letter I sent was addressed to this house. You claimed Mandy was emotionally unstable and said you would hold on to them for her. You never gave me her real address. You crushed my letters and cut off Mandy's contact with me. Didn't you? That's because, my mother shouted, you were in the nursing home. We thought you wouldn't notice. The reason my grandmother and I couldn't stay in touch was no longer a mystery. The nursing home's distance and the malicious wall my parents had built between us, everything finally fell into place, revealing the full ugliness of what they'd done. That's enough excuses, I said. taking a deep breath and signaling to Detective Miller. Let's confirm the facts from a legal standpoint. Detective Miller displayed on her tablet the so-called transfer agreement that Brittany was using as the basis for her ownership claim. Miss Thompson, you stated earlier that this document represents a legitimate transfer from Mandy 3 years ago, correct? Yes. Just look at the date. Brittany shouted, drenched in sweat. The date is there, yes. We'll address the handwriting shortly. But first, we conducted a digital forensic analysis of the paper itself. She pressed a button. A magnified image of the document appeared. Beneath the paper fibers, a pattern of tiny dots, imperceptible to the naked eye, emerged. This is a machine identification code. Many color printers embed microscopic yellow dots that record the printer's serial number and the date and time of printing. What? Brittany's mouth fell open. After analyzing these dots, we determined that this document was printed exactly 8 months ago. That's strange, I said with a cold smile. Why would a contract supposedly signed 3 years ago be written on paper printed just 8 months ago? I spoke slowly and clearly. In other words, this document was fabricated 8 months ago. I looked from my father to my mother and finally to Brittany. And I can think of exactly why you suddenly needed to forge it 8 months ago. My father's face turned ashen. 8 months ago, Grandma told you she was being discharged from the nursing home. She said, I'm coming home soon. I want to see Mandy's condo. You panicked. Until then, you'd been illegally occupying Mandy's condo and treating it as Brittany's based on nothing but verbal lies. But once Grandma came back and checked the property records, your lies would be exposed. So you hurriedly forged documents to give yourselves legal cover. That's not. But if you'd asked me to sign it, I would have refused. So Brittany copied my handwriting and forged my signature with a fake date. Isn't that right? My father clutched his head and groaned. I'd hit the mark. For 3 years, they'd done whatever they pleased, counting on my grandmother being locked away in a nursing home. But the moment they heard she was coming back, they panicked and rushed to fabricate evidence. That panic led to their fatal mistake. Detective Miller pressed on mercilessly. According to handwriting analysis, this signature matches Miss Brittany's handwriting with 99% probability. This constitutes clear forgery of a private document. Furthermore, Miss Brittany falsely claimed to be Mandy's legal guardian and withdrew over $150,000 from Mandy's trust account under the pretense of condo maintenance fees. That constitutes grand theft and embezzlement. Grand theft. Brittany began shaking uncontrollably. Prison? No, this can't be real. Dad, say something. You're the one who said, as long as we backdated it, it'll be fine. You idiot. Shut your mouth, my father shouted, but it was far too late. The police have already been notified, Detective Miller said calmly. Criminal charges will be filed immediately. No. Brittany grabbed her head and burst into tears. Dad told me to do it. He said, Mandy's stupid, she'll never notice. He said, just copy her signature. I only did what I was told. Brittany, you're selling out your own father. But it's the truth. Mom said it too. She laughed and said, Mandy will never pay off her loans anyway, so we might as well use the money ourselves. Brittany, don't say another word, my mother screamed, lunging at her. It was painfully ugly. The very people who'd been preaching about family bonds and love just moments ago were now hurling accusations at each other, desperately trying to shift the blame. My grandmother watched the spectacle with cold eyes and spoke quietly. That's enough. At those words, the shouting stopped dead. I've seen enough of your ugliness. Don't stain this table any further. She turned to Detective Miller. Detective, is the revision to my will complete? Yes, Mrs. Hanson. Detective Miller produced a new set of documents. This is the latest will. It fully revokes the inheritance rights of Richard Hanson, Patricia Hanson, and Brittany Hanson, as well as Brittany's spouse, Derek Westbrook. It designates Miss Mandy Hanson as the sole heir to the entire estate. The entire estate? My parents shouted in unison. Mom, please wait. Anything but that? We're sorry. We've reflected. Gone was any trace of pride. Only a man clinging desperately to money remained. My mother followed suit. "I'm sorry, Mom. I had a moment of weakness. I'll never do it again. Please reconsider." From above them, my grandmother replied in an icy voice. "If you want to apologize, do it to Mandy. She's the victim, not me." My parents and Brittany's eyes all turned to me at once. Pleading. Fawning. And underneath it all, that same entitled assumption, we're family, so she'll forgive us. I slowly lifted my wine glass and took a sip. Then I smiled sweetly. "No, I don't possess mercy. The only thing I have for you is an invoice." I accepted the final document from Detective Miller. "This is a demand for restitution of unjust enrichment over the past 3 years, plus damages for emotional distress. The total amount due, $750,000. If payment is not made within 72 hours, criminal prosecution will proceed immediately." $750,000, my father screamed. "There's no way we have that kind of money." "Then sell what you do have," I said coldly. "Your house, your cars, your jewelry, and that condo at Seabreeze Point. You'll vacate it immediately. Tonight." Brittany collapsed to the floor. "Kicking Derek's parents out? If I do that, he'll divorce me. That's none of my concern." "That's your problem, Brittany." I cut her off coldly. "When I lost my job and my credit was destroyed, did any of you worry about me? No. You mocked me. You said I wasn't trying hard enough. Now it's your turn to taste that same misery." At that moment, a heavy knock sounded at the dining room door. 2 uniformed officers entered. "Brittany Hanson? Please come with us to the station." "No. Help me. I didn't do anything wrong." Brittany screamed as she was dragged away. Next, my parents, still in shock, were placed in handcuffs as well. "Mandy, I'm sorry," my mother sobbed, looking at me through tears. "I was wrong. Please drop the charges." "Goodbye, Mom," I said without looking away. "Count the days in your cell. You'll have plenty of time." As the police sirens faded into the distance, only my grandmother, Detective Miller, and I remained in the vast dining room. I let out a long breath. Not exhaustion, relief. As if a curse had finally been lifted. "It's over, Grandma." "Yes, it is," she said gently, pulling me into an embrace. "No, actually, that's not quite right. This is where it begins. Your real life." 1 year later. I'm standing on the balcony of Unit 42 at Seabreeze Point. The ocean stretches out before me, endless and blue. This place is truly mine. Brittany, Derek, and his parents were forcibly evicted within 48 hours of that night. Derek's father, the retired judge, claimed he had no idea the condo was stolen property. But because he was a judge, the scandal destroyed his reputation entirely. He was disgraced. Brittany was sentenced to 18 months in prison. She is currently incarcerated. Derek divorced her within 3 months. She lost everything. My parents were not sent to prison, but they were sentenced to 2,000 hours of community service each, plus 5 years of probation. Their reputations were destroyed. My father lost his job. My mother was shunned by every social group she once belonged to. They now live in a small studio apartment on the other side of town. I do not have their phone number. I do not want it. As for me, I turned this beachfront condo into my home office. I started a consulting business. Financial advocacy for young adults who have been financially abused by family members. My story went viral. Within 6 months, my calendar was booked solid. My income is now 10 times what I made working those 3 miserable jobs. I no longer depend on anyone. I've achieved complete financial independence. On weekends, my grandmother comes to stay. We sit on the balcony, watch the sunset over the ocean, and laugh, reclaiming the 3 years that were stolen from us. One evening, gazing out at the water, she said, "You didn't just reclaim the future that was taken from you, Mandy. Through integrity and courage, you built an even brighter one." I smiled from the bottom of my heart. This is my home. The place I protect. The place I love. I'm happy, Grandma.